Hello, I'm Robin Henning, and welcome to another Exchange Life Nugget of Truth. Have you ever come up against something that really terrifies you? Perhaps it's something really big like a cancer diagnosis or a huge financial setback, or maybe it's a little teeny tiny spider. I know some of you freak out at the sight of them, no matter how big they are. Well, then how do you react to this statement? God is the only legitimate fear object. Does that sound silly or trite to you? Maybe it does. But beloved, it is neither silly nor trite. It's the truth. As Jesus is preparing his disciples to go out and do ministry, he's telling them about all kinds of bad things that are going to happen to them at the hands of people. And he exhorts them. He says, don't be afraid of those who can kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather, he says, be afraid of Papa God, a reverential fear, because Papa God is the only one who can destroy both soul and body in hell. The only legitimate fear object is God himself. So, it's sometimes easier said than done because our natural instinct is to preserve our lives. We were never meant to die, so we're hardwired to stay alive. Paul, he was given a glimpse of heaven. And he, at times, really grew tired. He really grew weary of the constant death threats he was up against. And there were times when the Spirit of the Lord would come to him and exhort him. He says, hey, don't be afraid. I think it was when he was in Corinth. He says, I have many believers in this city, and you're going to be fine. You're going to stay here for a couple of years. You're going to do ministry. It's all going to be good. There aren't going to be the death threats that were everywhere else around him. But beloved, I really am not saying that we should never feel fear. Rather, we need to train our brain. We need to help our brain process more clearly when it's doing threat assessment. Now, what do I mean by this? Our brain has several levels of processing when it takes in information. A couple of them happen at the subconscious level, which is the first level of processing. Our brain is constantly taking information in through our optic nerve. Obviously, this is for sighted people. I don't know how it works for people that are blind, but bear with me, okay? So we're taking information in through the optic nerve, and it comes to the back of our brain here, and it's constantly processing at the subconscious level. Simple question, is this important? Do I need to pay attention to this? Most of the time the answer is no, but sometimes we'll hit upon a yes, okay? So when we hit upon a yes, it comes up just a little bit up the brain to the next level of processing, back of our head here, and the simple question that it asks and answers is this safe? Am I going to live through this? Is this a threat? This is where threat assessment takes place. So most of the time the answer is no, but if we hit upon a yes, this is a legitimate threat, the brain is going to stop processing, okay? It's not going to go any further in the processing process, and then it's going to shoot a signal down the spinal cord to the kidneys, okay, to the adrenal gland, and adrenaline's going to get lit up in us, and we are going to fight or we're going to flee. Fight or flight gets activated. And at that point, we are not processing anything further. We are just running for our lives or fighting or whatever it is that we feel we need to do to get away from this threat. Okay? So, now how do we help our brain with threat assessment and stay in touch with reality and with the reality of the truth that God alone is a legitimate fear object? Well, if our frame of reference is being adjusted, being transformed by the renewing of our mind, and we realize the truth of what Jesus said to his disciples, that there isn't anything that can separate me from God. This is the Apostle Paul as well chiming in here, where he says that there is no legitimate person or thing or event that can separate me from the love of God that's in Christ Jesus. If I am in Christ, if I'm trusting in Christ, if I am not trusting in Christ, I am in real trouble. Threat assessment's genuine, because you do not want to stand before a holy God apart from faith in the finished work of Christ. Okay? Because That's not a good scene. Hell awaits those who choose to reject Jesus and stand before God on their own merits. But for the person who's put their faith in Jesus, there is no legitimate fear object except God himself, and that's a reverential, respectful fear, because I know the truth is when I stand before him, he's going to welcome me as his child. He's not going to condemn me to hell. So, with that frame of reference, and I'm filtering, is this safe or not, I realize even if somebody's pointing a gun at me and is going to pull that trigger, I can stay present in the moment. Is this safe or not? Well, sort of, because the reality is if that person shoots me, I'm going to glory. That's awesome, okay? If that person is going to attack in some way, look, I'm not saying I wouldn't fight back. What I'm saying is that my brain is going to be able to stay present. It's not going to shut down. It's not going to disassociate from reality and, go through the whole post-traumatic stress or traumatic stress issues. It's going to stay present. It's going to be able to react with the information it has up here because it hasn't just shut down here. Up here is where my filing system is. I'm able to sort through things and react appropriately and handle things appropriately. Okay? I know it sounds goofy, but it's really how it's a simplified explanation of how our brain works, and we want to stay out of the trauma and stay in the present, knowing that Christ is in us and Christ is with us. There isn't anything, not even a little teeny tiny spider or a human coming at us, or some sort of torture or some sort of accident or anything that can separate us from the love of God that's in Christ Jesus. He's with us. He's never going to leave us. He's never going to forsake us. All our days have been ordained since the foundations of the earth. And he really, really loves us. And he's more than able to deal with anything and everything that comes across our path. So, beloved, train your brain to remember that God alone is the only legitimate fear object. When you're doing threat assessment, you'll be able to stay in the present. You won't get triggered on the fight or flight. You'll be able to stay in the present and react appropriately. I hope this encourages you. I hope you have a blessed week in Jesus. We'll see you next time.